What follows is a collection of terrifying tales. I am known as E. To keep things safe, I'll be going by E instead of my real name. Someone with severe mental illness was a romantic partner of mine. I was oblivious to the symptoms of bipolar disorder and borderline personality disorder because I grew up in a very secluded environment. Them who are afflicted with them should not feel attacked. Their insufficiency is something I am well aware of. My sole empathy is for my ex-partner. Her mental health was obviously severely affected, but I'll admit it, I lack the skills necessary to manage relationship illnesses like these. No, I am not an expert. Completely lacking. The relationship was turbulent to begin with. In the end, she cheated on me and was quite manipulative and delusional. She sought a spiritual connection which she felt was lacking in her life and desperately wanted to cultivate through witchcraft when we were dating. Stranger things began to happen for both of us. The second she dabbled in the unknown, and dark reality appeared to seep into her hallucinations. She would bless those she loved and condemn those who wronged her, while lighting candles and whispering incantations. It was as if I were a character in a horror movie, and I was the unfortunate one. The initial incident occurred while we were spending the night at the residence of a mutual acquaintance, following a social gathering. In the dark, we slept on a blown-up mattress attempting to get some rest. Out of nowhere, she straightened up and began gazing down the hall in the direction of our sleeping acquaintance and their family. She claimed to have heard somebody approaching us on foot. Nothing was audible to me. I was terrified and bewildered. Then I beheld it. A series of depressions appeared on the bed, as if an unseen entity had stepped on it while we were sleeping. She retreated in a hulking motion, her scream unearthly. A demon from the underworld seemed to have clawed its way out of her mouth. The whole household was startled awake. I was left trembling and terrified. I made an effort to explain it. Perhaps the family's black cat was the culprit. The only source of light in the room was the reflected light from outside. For my part, I was hoping it would make sense. And it did. Without it, I could have lost my mind. At my parents' house, the second celebration was held. My brother was in his room across the hall from me, and as we were watching TV and relaxed on my bed, we both heard a low, guttural growl. Extraterrestrial beings such as a wicked goblin seemed to have slithered out from beneath the bed. My brother and I contacted him, and the two of us looked into it. It had to be an old King Kong toy that made noises every now and then when jostled, so I rummaged through the cabinets in search of it. However, upon inspection I discovered that it was batteryless, and pressing its breast had no effect. We pretended it was just something outdoors and laughed it off. We are located in South Africa, after all, where raccoons are found in American garbage. We have monkeys here, and if you're not accustomed to their noises, they can be quite frightening. But I knew in my heart that it couldn't be. After all, I've spent years listening to monkeys, and never before had I heard a sound quite like this. Some more unusual things happened between the second and third major occurrence, such looking up and seeing what I can only characterize as unidentified flying objects, UFOs, which would break through the atmosphere before disappearing. Their movements seemed deliberate. Yet at first, I believed it was just a meteor shower, almost as if they were being led. Even if it wasn't aliens, I couldn't place it. Plus, it made people wonder more than be afraid. It left me contemplating the future of my life. I had never felt anything like that before I met this girl. Paranormal activity quickly consumed my life despite my lifelong skepticism of the supernatural. Some unpleasant and delusional conduct was also exhibited by my ex. She believed she could make out faces when none existed. Nothing would be under her feet when she trampled on made-up critters. Like everything else around her, she felt like her house wasn't real. I started to worry that her mental disorder was getting worse. She did go to the doctor, who upped her medication in an effort to manage her psychosis. However, she confessed that she had neglected to inform me about this. The third occurrence was the most unsettling of the all. After she ate a marijuana cookie, we entered her aunt's backyard. It was night-time, and the garden had the dense, foreboding atmosphere of a forest. Barking of nearby shrubs caught our attention. She wondered if her aunt was pulling a practical joke and assumed someone was stomping about on heavy feet. She was known to do that in the past. I sought her out by name. No response. Phoned once more. Nothing has changed, as if someone was standing just in front of us. The footsteps grew louder, and then came to a halt. Nothing could be discerned. My ex-boyfriend, who was still high, then screamed in a way that sent shivers down your spine. We sprinted up the steps and dashed toward the house, but her aunt met us there, attempting to leap out and terrify us. Even though we were absolutely frightened, I wanted to know if she had been out in the garden once things had settled down. She was convinced she hadn't. Just as we were about to hurry up the stairs, she heard a scream and waited at the top. He was crying. After she composed herself, she informed me that she had seen a bipedal beast towering over me that was part man and half dog, just like a domestic dog, had all of a sudden become tall and stout. I attempted to reassure her by speculating that it might have been the marijuana or a medication interaction gone wrong, but she reacted angrily, accusing me of gaslighting and emotional abuse. Things continued to fall apart after that. She finally betrayed me by having an affair with a former teacher who had obviously helped shape her. An utterly disorganized relationship came to a horrific close. We have severed all ties, and I have no intention of re-establishing them. Truly, I pray that she has found solace and is no longer involved with that creep. I can only imagine the mental toll that having a mind that is always projecting imagined realities upon you must take. Oh, and this is where things get weird. It was as if the strangeness had stopped happening after we split up, as if it had confined itself to her and perhaps clung to me due to our proximity. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary when she departed. Full explanations elude me. It was my attempt. I don't understand anything. Perhaps I was the victim of a hallucination or some other supernatural force was at work. In any case, it's appalling. Furthermore, I gained a profound appreciation for the terrifying potential of the human mind. Enjoyed reading the story. It's a channel that I really enjoy. Currently, life is great. My life as an artist is fulfilling, and I have a wonderful partner. Occasionally, I find myself reflecting on those experiences. The road to recovery was long, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. It was a learning experience for me. It propelled me toward an even more delightful life than I had anticipated. Would you mind giving my Instagram a shout-out if you decide to share this? Go to Legendary Lankman to find it. Here you can find a selection of my non-illustration-related works of art. Not a problem either way. If that doesn't work with the video, feel free to skip it. By the way, I appreciate the narrative. I may as well just yell out and lend you a hand. You are always in my thoughts and prayers. Hello, good tale. Best regards, E. I have been a long-time viewer of your channel, and I must say I absolutely adore listening to them as I work on commissions and drawings. Hey there, I'm Ellie. Here is my first narrative. In case any of them are turned into videos, I will submit it to you in the same format as the essay I produced on the topic. For my English 2 class, I went out late one night, and my mum and I got into a fight about it. She gave me a long speech about how dangerous it is and why I shouldn't. I casually made my way to my room to spend the night, sitting at my workstation in my room. I couldn't help but think of this house a few roads down from mine. Poor construction had led to its recent abandonment, and I couldn't help but ponder what I should do. A part of me wanted my mum to be furious and angry with me because I was interested and bored, but I also knew that she would be. I went to the hallway closet for a flashlight and my spare water bottle after everyone else had gone to sleep at my house. In stealth, I left my residence by the back door. Upon stepping outside, I became acutely aware of the radical shift in my mood. I got an uneasy sense I shouldn't have gone out or visited this place, and I couldn't put my finger on why. Staying out late was nothing new for me, but I couldn't shake this feeling. As I neared the house, this sensation rapidly faded. I wanted to unravel the mystery of this mansion, and the queasy feeling in my stomach transformed into enthusiasm. I was on the verge of throwing up from the strong odor. When I got to the house, I regretted not turning around. when I thought the pumping was a contributing factor to its abandonment. As I stood in front of this run-down, unkempt house, my emotions ran high and conflicted. I was anxious about my mom and wanted to turn back, but I was also excited to see what was inside the house. Upon entering, I noticed that the carpet had stains that appeared to be green, like the rough side of a wet sponge. It was harsh to the touch. A thick layer of dust and cigarette smudge covered the walls, giving them an orangish-yellow hue. Upon entering, the stench intensified, resembling that of spoiled food or a dead body. Once the door was shut, I activated my flashlight. After the move-out, the house appeared normal with a few suitcases lying around and a small couch flanked by a round coffee table. The dining area and kitchen were on opposite sides of the living room. I went in and immediately saw that the stench was emanating from the refrigerator positioned in the room's center. Despite my curiosity, I suspected it contained spoiled food due to the dark crimson liquid falling from it and creating a little pool. Thus, I withdrew. The room's walls were unchanged from the previous one. In addition to removing all of the drawers and cabinets, the floors appeared to have been scraped and pulled up. I searched the kitchen and then made my way down the hall. The tint of the paint was different. Its deep purple color and white trimming were showing signs of wear and tear. I was drawn to this particular room as I strolled down the hall. There was the same scent I detected in the kitchen, and the walls appeared to be a pale pink hue. I turned around to see who it was, since I heard a sound as I was going to step inside. In all black, I beheld a towering figure. His question was, "Why are you here? Living in this house is dangerous." Before he could utter another word, I bolted out of the house in a state of panic. I attempted to get some sleep after returning home without telling my mum about what I had seen in the house. A man's arrival at my residence made me remember something which I had been ignoring. That night, I saw the same man I bolted from the house as soon as he questioned my mother why I was there. He told her she expressed her apologies on my behalf and expressed gratitude that he had informed her. Neither did I ever see that man again, and I still don't know what was in that house. Proceeding to a couple of shorter tales, I used to play with a ghost or something in my closet when I was little, my parents say. One night I was sobbing uncontrollably and they couldn't find my Pazzi. It was subsequently removed from its storage space. When I was a kid, my dad would frequently search for people in abandoned homes. On one occasion, he brought back a Bible and photographs of a young Indian woman. The woman with the long black hair stared at me as I slept that night on the couch, and she put her fingers to my mouth and told me to be silent. I remember a storm that started out of nowhere and a tornado barreling down on the trailer where my cousin was celebrating her birthday when I was a little girl. In this cramped closet and the adjacent restrooms, there were more than 20 children. The tornado lifted itself up, swept right over our house, and continued on its way. My dad still tells me this story to this day as he stared out the door. All those children's deaths were unintentional, in my opinion. The spot where it happened is still beneath my home. My sincere wish is that you find these tales intriguing. I hope everything is going well for you. Wanted to drop a quick note and tell you how much I enjoy the content and am looking forward to what's to come. Please, do not relent. You will be the first person I have ever spoken this level of information about, and it is an unhappy, true story that I went through myself. Okay? Then let's dive in. So before I go into this, a little background. Hi there, I am Aria. It's okay with me if you want to use my name. I hail from a quaint Texas town, and I'm 19 years old. I've spent all of my life here. Although I'm not very good at maintaining friendships, I am an outgoing person who has no problem striking up conversations with complete strangers. My tendency to be overly kind to the wrong people stems from my strong desire to satisfy everyone. An ideal illustration of that is this narrative. I've only ever been in a short-lived, committed relationship. The emotional abuse I endured at the hands of my ex-boyfriend severely damaged my view of love. I stopped actively seeking a romantic partner and mostly went about my own business. After my ex-boyfriend and I split up around 18 months ago, I downloaded the dating app, Hinge. After our breakup, I was more interested in finding someone to spend time with and have fun with than in pursuing a serious relationship. Men started swiping at me immediately. Guys have always been interested in me, and I know it because I am a conventionally gorgeous female. As a result, I was not surprised. Please, don't think I'm being egotistical when I say that I've been told I'm beautiful since I was a little girl. In any case, I'm perusing Hinge when I come across a guy that catches my eye. As a matter of privacy, let's refer to him as H. This man resembled Superman Clark Kent in appearance. He was the epitome of a hot guy, absolutely stunning, with striking blue eyes, jet black hair, and a muscular physique. He attended a university in a neighboring city and was my age as well. Therefore, I decided it would be best to fire my shot. I aimed to find a partner by swiping right on him. After a few moments of waiting, I confirmed that we were a perfect match. Upon matching, he immediately sends the first text, which includes a corny pickup line that I am unable to recall at the moment. He approaches me on Hinge and asks for my Snapchat after we had a little talk. He gets it from me without delay. He starts chatting with me on Snapchat after adding me. In the days that follow, we remain in constant contact through a combination of texting and Snapchatting, and he finally asks me out on a date. Obviously, I say yes, and then we start making plans. Since it was in the middle of December last year, we were limited to activities that had to do with Christmas. There is a beautiful light display close to my hometown, therefore I think we should go visit them for Christmas. We settle on a day and make plans to meet in town on Saturday, the day of the light show. It finally reaches Saturday, the day we're going on our date. The time of our meeting was set for 8 p.m. because the light show required darkness. At around 7 o'clock in the evening, I begin to get ready. Before I leave, send a text to H to inform him that I'm almost there before heading to the event. H and I had already planned to meet at an apartment complex in that town that I was familiar with. We also made a pact that he would come get me from my place and take me to the drive-through performance, since it was a drive-through event. I convey my arrival at the apartment complex through text message to H. He says he'll be there in 5 minutes, so I get into my car with some tunes and some music. Finally, he texts me to let me know he's there and wants to know where I parked. He looks confused at first, but he figures out where I'm parked when I tell him. He stops next to me and lowers his window. Stepping out of my vehicle, I make my way to his. He appears identical to his photos, but he is considerably older, likely in his late 20s, rather than the 19 years he claimed to be. As the butterflies of a first date began to flutter, I pushed the concept out of my mind. As I approach, I playfully mention that it appears you became a bit disoriented for a moment. He merely looks at me with the most expressionless face imaginable. Unmoved he gazes. I dismissed my suspicions that it was strange. Upon entering his truck, I am assaulted by an overwhelming aroma that resembles bleach and a cheap-smelling perfume. Similar to how I didn't give it much thought when it was happening, I now find it very strange. I was about to buckle up when this man asked, "Was that really the outfit you wanted to wear?" in a tone that conveys disgust. Yeah, I'm returning it, but I say that in a playful way. "You're not a fan, are you?" Not only that, but he says it straight up no. I couldn't help but laugh it off, even though I was surprised. I'm just too kind. As an example, I was simply sporting a form-fitting black t-shirt and blue trousers. The light show is only a 10-minute drive away, so we get off the road and go there. As we drove, there was complete silence. Nothing to distract us from our attempt to strike up a conversation and avoid feeling completely out of place, and he spares us no small chat or music. It could have been nerves, but something about this guy doesn't sit right with me. We arrived at the light show venue, where there was an extremely lengthy queue to enter. While we waited in line, he glances over to me and finally asks me a question. Quite an arbitrary inquiry. His question, "Have you ever had sex?" breaks the awkward pause. It's absolutely shocking to me. When I look at this man, I know he isn't joking. I wasn't sure he was at first, but then I started to wonder if he was. I couldn't tell. No, I think that man was really sincere. I crack a joke and say, haha, that's funny as best I can. Not quite ready to go into it just yet. My goal is to escape that discussion at this moment. Being overly polite again, reversing his direction, he remains silent. After another uncomfortable 10 minutes of complete quiet, we finally make it to the gate. I had no idea that admission would cost $50 without hesitation. H glanced at me as the woman at the gate requested the money. I misplaced my wallet, he said, sticking out his hand. This whole thing has gotten to me and I'm fuming. Please let this be done and gone with. We proceed inside after I give this jerk my card, and he hands it to the woman. He confirms with a nod that he has indeed forgotten his wallet when I ask him. He made no attempt to return the funds to me whatsoever. However, I was no longer concerned. He was eager for the date to end. For 45 minutes I was subjected to this painful, light show, no music, just this awkward guy staring out the window who said absolutely nothing. Meanwhile, my nose is burned by the strong smell of bleach and inexpensive perfume. It was so uncomfortable and scary that I stopped attempting to strike up a conversation. After we made it through the light show, he turned to me and said, "So what are your plans for the rest of the day?" This man has spoken the most throughout the night. I had him drive me back to my car after I made up an excuse about how early I had to be at work the following morning. He nods slightly and gives me the angry side eye. A terrifying 10-minute drive through the darkness during which I muttered to myself how terrifying this man is. We reach my automobile. In the end, I rush to the door the second he pulls into the driveway, and he locks them practically immediately after I glance across to H and enter a state of complete bewilderment. I have never seen anything as terrifying as the expression on this man's face. I could only think of Pennywise from the IT films when I saw the expression on his face. I still hear nothing. He or she just stares at me with that strange expression. Silence envelops me. That level of terror and bewilderment is completely new to me. I had a crushing sense of terror, and my heart was racing. Still, I dash to the car door, find the unlock button and open the door like a boss. Thankfully, I never lock my car, so I just unlock the door and hop in. I will immediately secure them once I get in the car, turn it backwards, and bolt out of there. I am completely confused about what just transpired. On my way home, I'm going far faster than is safe. I just realized he's been following me for the past 5 minutes on my way home. I want you to know that I'm not even close to the speed limit. This man is hot on my heels. There was very no traffic, and I was driving a sports vehicle, which I am quite adept at controlling, so I cranked it up to 11. Due to its age, his truck slipped behind. After another 20 minutes or so of monitoring my rearview mirror, I finally realized that I had successfully lost him. Because I reside in the middle of nowhere, you can't possibly have driven off the side roads. I had to travel to reach my home by accident. As I turn onto one of my side roads, I can barely make out the distant glow of a vehicle's headlights. In the vicinity of 10:30 p.m., nobody was using these roads anymore because of this. I slow down a bit when that awful sensation returns. Once again, my darkest nightmare appears in the rear-view mirror. On this occasion, he was once again on my back. I am no longer going to waste time. I inform the authorities that I am being followed and provide them with the details by dialing 911. They want to know where road I'm on and any other details they might need. A relief washes over me, as after what seems like an eternity, the red and blue lights appear behind him. He stops right away, and I keep driving home. As soon as my anxiety levels drop, I bolt inside, shut the front and back doors and check everything again. I was worried that H would discover me, so I summoned a friend to come over. I inform her about what transpired when my buddies drop by. Since I'm feeling very down, she tries to reassure me. That evening, H never showed up. Praise be to God, if H had been fired or arrested, I would have no idea what became of him. I am unsure. I just know that he was severely disturbed, and I shudder to think of what he could have done to me had I not escaped from that truck as fast as I did. Even now I get the willies whenever I smell bleach. The reason he had bleach in his truck is completely puzzling to me. I make an effort, but it's not easy to keep my thoughts focused. I will not be re-downloading Hinge. I removed it. After that, not very soon at all. Salutations. That was an excellent article. Approximately 28 years old, here is my name, Ethan. I was roughly 15 years old when this happened to me. I apologize if I have hazy details. It might be a lengthy tale, but nonetheless this is the procedure. For the sake of my family's safety, I will not reveal my residence. I do recall, though, that it was a weekend. My folks were planning to stay at a hotel downtown that was on the beach. Among the many basic house rules they gave me was the need to keep the place clean at all times and to wash the dishes. Because my parents suspected that my friends would cause mayhem at our house, they forbade any of us from visiting. I did what they asked and made sure nothing bad will happen while they're away for the weekend. I was a careless adolescent, so I sent a group chat message to my pals to let them know they could spend the night at my apartment as they pulled out of the driveway. All right, my pal Ryan is currently en route. Having one of the lads enjoy this lengthy, and dare I say it, dull, 3-day weekend was a huge relief for me. We hung around in the living room and played some Call of Duty when Ryan eventually arrived, which took approximately 10 minutes, at about 9:00 p.m. Upon Ryan informing me that he was going hungry and inquiring about the availability of food in my refrigerator, I suggested to Ryan that we get Domino's pizza using the roughly $200 my parents gave me for groceries. Before they left, a couple of breadsticks and 2 huge sausage pizzas were the items ordered. Ryan went to the restroom to use the restroom after I placed the order, and since I was utterly bored while waiting for him to return, I chose to gaze out the window for amusement. As I peered out the window, I could make out the familiar lighting of my neighbors' houses, but my attention was immediately drawn to a woman walking down the street. Her nightgown appeared to have been plucked from the set of The Ring. This tapping motion on her leg was all she could muster. I counted 2 taps every minute. It was also too dark to make out what she was clinging to, but she was obviously grabbing on to something. "Creepy lady," I whispered internally. After I looked out the window, Ryan emerged from the restroom and wanted to know what I was seeing. I drew the shades and gestured for the woman to come back, but she had already left. "Got a hunch, dude?" Ryan inquired. Down the street, I told him, there was a woman who looked rather unsettling. Instead of taking it personally, Ryan just wanted to know when the pizza will be delivered. About 5 minutes remained until our order was due, so I checked my phone. As Ryan sat on the couch, controller in hand, I informed him it will be coming in 5. We spread out on the dining table. As soon as the pizza came, I retrieved 2 glasses from the cupboard and a liter of Mountain Dew from the refrigerator. 2 slices were taken by me and 4 by Ryan. I made a playful remark to Ryan about his shape. For whatever reason, I skipped both meals. "Give me a break," Ryan explained. There were only 12 pizza pieces remaining after we finished our meal, and we hardly touched the breadstick. Thus, it was somewhat an expenditure of funds. We put the breadsticks and pizza in the fridge to eat later. Time was about 10 o'clock, and our time was wasted. We so decided to just randomly call several people as a hoax. Ryan chose a number at random and went first. A male voice asked who was calling from another number. The man's confusion and anger were understandable reactions to Ryan's attempt at a deeper voice and his jokes about saying foolish things. Now that Ryan had ended our conversation, I could dial any number I wanted. Since we have never met, I figured it would be best to give one of my neighbors a call, until someone picked up the phone, rang. "Hello, this is your house insurance, telling you that you'll be kicked out of your house the next business day," I stated in a whimsical voice. Quite a bit of breathing transpired the other day after saying, "I'm coming for you." The caller ended the conversation. Ryan felt the same way I did, genuinely disturbed and shaken. Ryan proposed that we just end it there, and I thought it was a good idea. We were planning to sleep in the living room with Ryan, so I went to my room to gather some blankets and pillows because it was getting late. Ryan was understandably just as terrified as I was to sleep. Shortly after Ryan dove headfirst into bed with me, something jolted me awake. The time was 1 a.m. As I glance over at Ryan, he appears to be sound asleep. I went to get some water from the fridge, as I was rather parched. 3 faint taps on the window rang out to me. There were 3 additional knocks this time, considerably louder, but I ignored them since I thought it was only rain or leaves. I scared Ryan awake because I felt so unsettled. Worried and exhausted, he wanted to know what was going on. "Is that tapping you hear?" I asked. "What's going on?" "Why?" Ryan asked. Ryan stared at me in terror as more taps rang out from the window. Finally reaching my breaking point, I decided to peep at the person responsible for those taps. What followed is still a source of constant anxiety for me. From across the street, I could see a woman who appeared to be tapping on a window while brandishing a kitchen knife and wearing a broad smile. As I plummeted to the floor in horror, my gaze landed on Ryan, who was visibly shaken by the frightening sight outside the window. The woman walked up to the front door and attempted to open it, but to no avail. I seized the chance to seize Ryan and whisk him away to my room for concealment when she began pounding. Without hesitation, I dialed 911 and requested a fast response. A clattering sound resounded through the living room. It is likely that the woman was inside the residence after breaking the glass. My suggestion to Ryan was that we take cover in the restroom. Screaming made the situation worse as the woman frantically searched the entire house, opening and closing doors. Every second she was drawing nearer and nearer. In that instant I realized that this insane woman was probably going to kill us. Ryan hid in the corner, terrified as I heard footsteps approaching my room. The woman began pounding on the door to the restroom as if she were about to smash it. As soon as I perceived distant sirens, the woman halted and bolted out of the room at a breakneck pace. I was unable to understand the police officers yelling as they were positioned outdoors. There was a momentary hush when the gunshots stopped. An officer from the police department went door to door in the residence. He came to my bathroom door and gave Ryan and me the reassurance that we could come out. I witnessed the woman's lifeless body lying on the ground as I descended the stairs. I was planning to play prank call on some neighbors, but the cop informed Ryan and me that this woman had just escaped from a mental institution and murdered a family. After a long day of their rule that no friends allowed in the house, my parents returned home, distraught and worried about me and Ryan. Ryan was brought home after they contacted his parents. My parents opted to spend the entire weekend at home with me instead of going on their little getaway. The ultimate takeaway from this ordeal was a terrifying terror that I pray no one ever has to face. I really enjoy listening to you tell tales. One such story is mine. Share it if you like. When I was in 4th or 5th grade, my aunt and grandmother told me this story. This story has lingered in my mind ever since. Our story begins in the 1970s as our class visits the ancient city of Mandu in central India. The tiny town of Mandu is famous for its old forts, some of which are 600 years old. The area was much less developed back then, surrounded by thick forests. During my aunt's time in high school, the school planned a field trip to Mandu, Nepal, where each group was accompanied by one adult guardian. Along with my aunt, my grandmother set out on this adventure. One of the forts was finally reached by their bus after a long travel. Everyone was in a good mood, enjoying each other's company while learning about the past. Along with their imposing appearance, the forts of Mandu are famous for the extensive water storage systems, subterranean tunnels, and enormous stepwells that were formerly a part of them. Those ponds and tunnels weren't guarded by the authorities back then. These tunnels and ponds have been the site of several S-word crimes throughout the years. A friend of my aunt's sat by the side of a big pond, occasionally dipping her toes into the water. As they all went about their separate activities, someone at last paid attention to her plight. She was writhing in the water with her hands. A handful of individuals wasted no time in rushing over to rescue her. Her mossy coat betrayed her obvious distress. Her voice quivered as they probed for details about what had transpired. "Hands," she uttered. I was pulled out of the water by hands. There was an overwhelming power and I struggled to resist. A subtle anxiety crept into the formerly joyful journey. They opted to end early after continuing to see the sights. As night fell on the return trip, their bus unexpectedly stopped in the midst of a wooded road. There was a flat tire. Suddenly a barefoot man with a lamp materialized as the driver went outside to attend to the problem. He told the driver to get out of here as fast as possible while staring directly at him. During the night, the woodland ghosts awoke. Even though he was startled, the driver recovered fast and got the bus back on the road. The ladies in my aunt's group gazed out the windows as they sped away. A dimly lit figure floated behind the vehicle, visible through the dense forest in the distance. We hope you enjoy this tale. Regards and gratitude. Your videos are extremely inspiring. I listen to them when I sketch or try to get some shut-eye. This is simply something I wanted to share because it's weird and I'm bored. There's some context as it describes a reoccurring nightmare in very vivid detail. This is simply a heads up. My history of sleep paralysis dates all the way back to my toddler years, so I feel it's important to note that before I tell the narrative, I have never been affected by my parents' divorce, even though it has been going on since I was 3 years old. My mum had a boyfriend once and they became engaged after dating for a while. I was about 13 years old when my mum's boyfriend, who will be named T for privacy reasons, broke up with her. He is actually a reasonably famous digital artist. He had been a part of our family for 5 years, and our relationship was quite tight. Not only did he show me how to sketch, but he also taught me a lot about the art world. Goodbye was never an option for me. His belongings gradually vanished. All of his work-related belongings had vanished from the office. He seemed to have vanished without a trace, along with the hundreds of figurines that had adorned the bookshelves. My mental health took a nosedive after a while, and I went into a tailspin. In my nightmares, a towering, dark figure would sneak past my ajar bedroom door and peer in through the narrow opening. At first, these dreams were nothing more than a symptom of my growing fear of the dark. It was too tall to fit through the doorframe, so it would stoop when it entered my room. The creature would lean against the ceiling, a tall, lean black nothingness. It had glaring white eyes and a twisted, toothy grin, and it was very bony and terribly thin. Then it would shift to the point of view from which I was viewing the dream, as if it were observing my slumber. Leaving my room, it would waltz into my older brother's room, where he and my younger brother shared a bunk bed. It would enter the room, observe its victims, and then murder them. By slitting their bellies, their internal organs would be released. It would consume large portions of their intestines and other waste products. Then it would follow the same path to death when it entered my mum's room. The thing would sling their corpses into my chamber, where it would place them beside my bed before vanishing. Then I'd bolt into my mum's room in a fit of hysteria. Whenever I woke up, I spent a year in my mum's room until I was 14, around the end of 8th grade. During this period, I saw a psychiatrist, began therapy, and received diagnoses of PTSD, anxiety, depression, ADHD, panic disorder, sleeplessness, and panic disorder. There might be more, but I can't be sure. Once I started taking medication for it, my condition began to improve. The night terrors subsided after I started going to therapy. I felt more secure when my mum ordered a bed canopy for me. Even though I'm nearly 17 years old, I still keep it over my bed. When I was a kid, my fear of the dark was so extreme that I recall my older brother playing a joke on me by turning out the light in my room. While I was in there, I bolted out of there and locked the door. I began to shout and sob uncontrollably. My skin crawled and I gasped for air. Suddenly my mum dashed into my room and turned on the light. Suddenly I found myself sobbing in her arms while Mum scolded my older brother, who had only just begun to comprehend the severity of this anxiety. He would never again turn off the lights at random. The frequency and severity of the dreams began to diminish. By mastering the practice of lucid dreaming, I was able to regain some measure of control over my dreams once I became aware that I was indeed dreaming. As time went on, I began to feel more at ease, sleeping through the night. At the age of 13, I slept with a weighted blanket and 4 nightlights. At the age of 16, I no longer care and sleep in the darkness. The presence of even a single light in my room now makes it impossible for me to fall asleep. For around 1 year, beginning in the middle of my freshman year, I was free of these nightmares. They return occasionally whenever anything awful occurs, so I'm beginning to believe it occurs when there are a lot of things happening. Out of the blue, I felt like someone was watching me one night. Except for my sight, I was paralyzed. Ignoring it till I glanced into the distant corner of my room was my strategy for dealing with the meaning of it. A towering dark figure stooped over its back to the ceiling came into view at that moment. Just so you know, I slept on my loft bed at my dad's house that night. The distance from the ceiling is approximately 1 foot. A wave of terror washed over me. It stared back at me as I gazed at it. Holy cow, I nearly puked all over myself. It seemed like it watched me for what seemed like hours. I was unable to get back to sleep. I must have done so at some time, because my alarm went off at 6 in the morning. In order to be ready for school, I got out of bed. My pals and I were on a call that night. So far, I have kept this sleep paralysis experience a secret. At about midnight, I ended the call. I went to bed as my buddies continued to chat. The following day, I received a text message from one of them informing me that G had created some artwork and a story around it, but that they weren't sure if they should show it to you due to your phobia of the dark. I ignored it and proceeded to move on until we were on another conversation approximately 1 month later, and they cracked a joke about a towering man. They showed me G's drawing when I asked them about it, which left me perplexed. The identical figure I had seen that night pressing against the ceiling of my room had been depicted by her. The tall man was what she described it to me. She said, I recounted the dreams from my most recent experience of sleep paralysis to her after I froze. She found it amusing how her depiction and history of the towering figure mirrored my own, but I found it horrifying. After terrible things have happened, they have returned on occasion. My best friend left me. Our friend died again. In the midst of all the recent drama, including being kicked out of my dad's house, the dreams have returned, time and time again. I've made great strides in the past few months. Not only that, but I no longer stare into the distance of my bedroom when I attempt to nod off. I really appreciate you reading this. In this gallery you can find my less than stellar depictions of the towering figure. Yet another caution. There is a somewhat macabre element to one of them. Wow, that was an interesting one. I was hoping to use this opportunity to convey a true story in a future video. The events of the novel occur on 2 separate days in the summer and fall of 2024. My buddies and I in the neighborhood have come up with a strange notion based on these events. It is my sincere wish that you will soon achieve your objective of 500K. Sure, I'll tell you the tale. A little background on the subject at hand. Approximately 10 years ago, a fire swept through our town, destroying numerous homes in that specific region. My companion and I live close to the site where reconstruction began, but if you venture deep enough into the woods, you'll find plenty of interesting buildings and other structures to investigate. During a summer stroll with a buddy of mine, over a year ago, we came upon what appeared to be an abandoned shed. Our team's lack of intelligence led us to open the window and sneak inside. The enormous quantities of ivy covering the shed made entry difficult, but we managed to go inside, and the sight inside was terrifying. The first thing we saw when we entered the shed was the old furniture stashed there, the burned-out candles scattered among it, and the spray-painted pentagrams on the wall. Upon entering the subsequent chamber, we beheld several bones as well as dismembered limbs and skulls from deer, leading us to believe it might be a prank. Without hesitation, we bolted out the door and returned to his place. It was approaching 1 in the morning, which put us on edge. So naturally we were terrified. Many of the deserted buildings have given out signals that something is happening within. So we returned to the woods a few months later to investigate more. What my companion and I discovered on Halloween gave credence to our notion that the woods may be home to a cult or other hidden group. During Halloween, we strolled down the path that divides the more recent neighborhood from the old, deserted woodland. Because it was Halloween night, we decided to run away and explore after causing some commotion downtown. We started to investigate the woods and crossed a bridge that spanned a wide concrete depression that had served as a canal for the earlier homes. It looked like a nice place to relax, so we went into the canal and under the bridge. A little while later, as we continued to converse and blast music, we perceived what seemed like voices emanating from the direction of the forest, which was about 50 feet away. When we noticed a large campfire off in the distance, we stopped listening and simply sat. We descended into the dried-out canal and began to wander around its interior, pausing occasionally to look below. Out in the forest, about 20 feet away in an old barn, around 20 individuals sat around a fire, all wearing brown robes that matched. As we peered behind them, we noticed deer skulls, which horrified us because it meant the meat they were consuming had likely come from those unfortunate animals. As we turned around to return to the trail, we saw that several of them were brandishing what appeared to be shotguns. Suddenly we heard 2 gunshots and took off running towards my apartment. Except for a small group of close friends, we have kept this a secret. In a nutshell, the plot revolves around our exploration of several deserted forest locations. However, it was on Halloween that we discovered the truth that there was a secret cult performing ritual sacrifices using deer or something, so everyone should use caution. Additionally, I appreciate the opportunity to share my story and think it's good. May you soon achieve your target of 500,000 greetings. I would like to relate a tragic tale to you. It's not very long, but I thought I might as well submit it. Nevertheless, this channel is perfect for me because I have always had a huge fascination with the supernatural and the macabre. The paranormal in particular has lost a lot of its luster for me as I've gotten older. However, this tale from my youth keeps resurfacing whenever I question the reality of the supernatural. About the time I was 8 years old, this incident occurred. My childhood home was a farmhouse that was built in the early 1900s, which is really old. Its location in the midst of nowhere adds another layer of eeriness. Among the many terrifying experiences I had as a child was hearing footsteps all over the house, including in the attic, on the stairs and outside my bedroom. Even yet, I think a lot of it has an explanation. I was in possession of an iPod 4 at the time. Upon opening my camera one day, I beheld a photograph of myself. An image that I had most certainly not shot. It was a photo snapped while I slept, perhaps no more than 5 feet away. I can still picture it in my head. As I dozed off, my arms spread out across the bed, revealing my backside. There was a spectral sphere, almost an arm, in the far corner of the image. My 8-year-old self was so horrified by this that I felt compelled to erase the photo the second it happened. On top of that, I would never view this photo again because recently deleted wasn't a thing back then. However, the subsequent photo appeared after I removed the previous one. Just so you know, I used to charge my iPod in the little space between the couch and the wall in the corner of our living room before school. I discovered a photo album of my 2 cousins and me waiting for the bus to take us to school, taken from that tiny space where no one could possibly fit because they used to come to my house to board the bus with me. An unreasonable 8-year-old who was too terrified to look at the photos, likewise promptly erased them. People often wonder if someone else might have shot the pictures. When I recount this event, I was an only child growing up. My parents definitely wouldn't have snapped that photo of me dozing off. They would never pull that stunt on me. They would have also acknowledged it. My parents were also working when these images were shot of my cousins and me. The identity of the photographer is left unexplained. This never yielded any results. Even now, my folks refuse to believe me. Like I mentioned, minor events would occur, such as the sound of knocking or footsteps, etc. But I remained a resident of that house for a further 10 years afterward, and I never experienced anything comparable. Those photographers must have been quite calm, I suppose. Hello, good story. This is Caleb. I never miss one of your videos. In the background, your channel is always playing. Much obliged. Hey, I appreciate that. I am truly grateful. As you move forward with your tale, I hope you keep enjoying the videos. If anything doesn't make sense, feel free to update and replace it. Anyway, now we can get to the plot. I don't claim authorship of this piece. This information is passed down from my closest friend's mother, who still insists that it is all accurate. In the English countryside, there are several supposedly haunted historical sites that are also associated with Halloween and weird rituals that people have tried out annually for ages. Things like Bloody Marys, but with a lot more alcohol. Nearby, there is a church that has the distinction of having been the location of multiple documented witch trials, dating back to an era when the practice of burning witches was commonplace. Time has passed since we last spoke. The legend goes that from the upper floor windows of this cathedral you can see the graves of many ladies who were condemned and executed for sorcery and witchcraft. Huge and perched on top of the hill, the structure is a sight to behold. The moonlit sky is indeed a terrifying sight to see when it aligns perfectly. According to my friend's parents, ghostly activity would commence whenever one entered the church after walking around it 3 times in an anti-clockwise orientation, a tradition that originated when my buddy was a child. A group of her buddies, and she decided to give it a go on Halloween, along with her wheelchair-bound pal, her then-boyfriend, and a couple of his buddies came. They then pushed him around the chapel 3 times while laughing and joking amongst themselves. Afterwards, she and her boyfriend went inside the church, where she described an unsettling silence that made it seem as though nothing had transpired. Her boyfriend had even gone outside to see whether the groundskeeper had arrived to remove them. The tale goes that just minutes after they stepped foot in the eerily silent chapel, their wheelchair-bound companion started writhing and slashing at him with the fire axe that had been retrieved from the wall near the entrance. The friend was frantically trying to reach them. She described him as insane and with devilish eyes, attempting to enlist the assistance of the remaining members of the group. He maneuvered himself towards them while brandishing the axe. My best friend's mum reported that she escaped the church, narrowly avoiding an axe blow before her lover came racing up on his motorcycle, drew her out of harm's way, and she leaped on the back of his bike as they both dashed for the exit. Her companion, who remained in the church in his wheelchair and appeared to be fixated on the altar ahead of him, was promptly taken into custody after they reported him to the authorities. The most peculiar aspect, though, is that he remained a patient in the same asylum 30 years after the tragedy had occurred. His life and mind were irrevocably changed by whatever transpired at the church. He was declared mentally disturbed, and to have endured a psychotic break, he was just your average gregarious sociable dude. She had stated before his spirits remained high, despite the fact that he was confined to a wheelchair due to injuries sustained in a motorcycle accident. He was completely uncharacteristic as an axe killer because he had always been gregarious and enthusiastic. Even stranger was the fact that she possessed a picture of the entire gang standing outside the church entrance prior to their entrance. In it, she could clearly see her life-saving motorcycle and her companion in the chair. I never bothered to dig into her claim that records of the man at the asylum where he is housed exist, proving it wasn't necessary for me. Her speech pattern betrayed her sincere belief in the reality of those events and their impact, at least on a personal level. Following that incident, Caleb said that strange things began to happen all around her, including that her partner had been slammed into a wall in their home's kitchen a few weeks later. According to her, things started to go wrong at home, and she had to seek help from other sources to try to get rid of the entities that had followed them there. I have no idea if this is true or not, but Margaret certainly thought it was and continues to believe it to be so. I can also confirm that my friend's family house has been experiencing some strange occurrences, but I can't say for sure if they are connected or just coincidental. I hope her friend is doing better today, and I hope someone can explain the church better someday. I am grateful. Great tale. Best of luck to you, Caleb. If you would like to see more stories like this, please let us know by leaving a comment, liking the video, or subscribing to the channel. We much appreciate you watching all the way to the end. Congratulations, you have reached the conclusion. Your presence here is greatly appreciated. Thank you for reading this, and I will see you again soon. Bye.